welcome. Thank you for joining me for today's PMI certification chat. My name is Andrea Brockmeyer, and I'll be with you here for the next half hour or so. And we do this periodically just to give folks an opportunity to ask questions and learn a little bit about PMI certification. I am the Director of Project Management at Watermark Learning, and so I have been around the certification scene for many, many years, been through many iterations of and versions of the PMBOK and other standards from PMI, and have developed curriculum for the PMP, the PBA, the ACP, and deliver those courses as well. I've got some classes coming up that you can sure join me at. That would be terrific. And we've got some anytime learning options as well if you'd like to do them on your own time. We've got recordings that you can listen, and people find those very helpful and provide some flexibility that maybe attending a class in person doesn't. So check it out. We'd love to see you. You'll get a copy of these slides at the end of today, so be looking for those. You'll get a link or some communication following today's session. So we've also got some things for you, a special offer that will come after today's session as well. So that will be included. So just a heads up on that. All right, so I hope that, and feel free to send questions at any point here. I've got some things I did want to share specifically about the PBA, but if you've got other questions about PMI certifications or other questions about what I'm talking about, feel free to send your question in. That would be great. So at any rate, the PMI-PBA, Professional in Business Analysis, has similar requirements in terms of how to qualify to sit for the exam as the PMP, if anybody is familiar with that. So you do have to have experience in doing business analysis work, and you also need some experience working on projects. So the PBA is a certification for folks who do business analysis in the context of projects and or programs. So they want you to have experience in both, because there are some folks who may do business analysis, but they do it for the organization, but they're not necessarily working on projects. And PMI is a project management organization. They're looking for folks who are doing this work within the context of projects or programs. So the categories for qualifying are either you have a college degree or you don't. And if you do have a college degree, you need at least 3 years of experience, totaling at least 4,500 hours of doing business analysis work. And if you don't have a degree, that is, you have a diploma or an associate's, then you need 5 years of experience, totaling at least 7,500 hours of business analysis experience. Now, those years of experience have to have been within the last 8 years. But they don't have to have been contiguous. So it could have been a couple months here, a few months there, whatever within the last 8 years. So it seems like a lot, but I think you'd be surprised once you start capturing your experience. And I always recommend start today and just work backwards till you get the hours you need. You'd be surprised how quickly it can add up. So in addition to that, then you also need 2,000 hours of experience working on projects. And that could have been any kind of work on projects. You could have been a BA, or you could have been doing PM work or team member. Now, the thing is that these also have to been within the last 8 years. If you already have a PMP or a PGMP, then you're already covered on this, so that's good. The other thing is that if your experience up above, that is, if you're 36 months or 60 months of BA experience, if 2,000 hours of those were within the context of projects or programs, you're good. So you don't have to come up with an additional 2,000 if your BA experience already was within, or at least 2,000 hours were already within the context of projects. So, so that's good. But it does seem like a lot. It takes a little while to kind of pull all that together. You'll need to provide contact information for folks that can verify that you actually did that. It doesn't have to have been your boss or the sponsor of the project necessarily, but it does need to be somebody that you could get in touch with in the event that you get audited. So, but don't let that deter you. You know, people get audited all the time as a matter of routine, and they turn those things around pretty quickly. Um, so in addition to the experience, you also need some education in business analysis. You need 35 what are called contact hours in business analysis. So those are different than PDUs. Sometimes people get them mixed up. PDUs, or professional development units, are what you earn after you're certified in order to maintain your certification. Prior to getting certified, and in order to qualify to sit for the exam, you have to earn what are called contact hours. So that's any kind of training on business analysis practices that could have been at any time. It could have been 20 years ago. And you do, however, want to make sure you can get some kind of a certificate or a certificate of completion or something, so that again, if you get audited, you can provide that, because you will need to. So something more recent, if that's available, can be really helpful. Any kind of classes that you take from Watermark, for example, many of our classes qualify, and those are easy to get what you need in order to complete that audit and satisfy those the audit requirements. So, and those have to be done before you submit your application. Okay, so you have to have those contact hours before you submit the application. So any questions at all about this, about the requirements to qualify? Anybody? So somebody asks, I was in clinical informatics and worked on strategic initiatives. Does that qualify for PM hours for project management? Are you thinking about the PMP or the PBA? The PBA. Yeah, I mean, clinical informatics and strategic initiatives, I think that absolutely sounds like BA work. And to that question, here is something to think about. So here are some links that I'll just include here in the presentation, so you get these in your hand in what you get after the session. But I want to take a look up here. So information and application. So to your point, because one of the questions that people often have is, how do I know that my experience counts and all that? And so people get, let me just make sure that I can, here, I want to get this up on the screen. All right, why is this? All right, so hang on just a moment here. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so if you go to PMI.org and you click on certifications here, and I want to make sure, yeah, let's see. Oh, here, let me just see what the question is. There's a statement in the instructions tab that the total percentage of any time frame on a project should not exceed 100%. Yes, and why it should be 80%. Yeah, hang on to that thought here. So if you go to PMI.org certifications here, and then you click on, there'll be all the certifications are here, and then you just click on PMI-PBA. So as you can see, PMI has lots of certifications. Click on PBA, and you'll see a couple of things over here on the right side. Notably, the handbook and the exam content outline, the ECO. Okay, this is a really key document, and I really encourage my students to make sure that you take a look at this, because this can be helpful in many ways. For one thing, this is the blueprint for the exam. So this is how when they write questions have to map back to the tasks here in the exam content outline. And it shows you this is how the exam is organized. They're organized into these domains. You're going to get questions that are organized like this. You're going to get needs assessment questions, planning, analysis, traceability, monitoring, and evaluation. And this is the breakdown. And then within those domains, there are these tasks. So when they write questions, these questions are really derived from these tasks, or they map back to these tasks. So to your first question about, here's the work I was doing, is that going to count for my BA experience? You want to get this ECO and take a look at these tasks and think about describing your work and how does your work match up with these tasks. Now, you don't have to have, experience in every one of these tasks, although you are going to need some experience in each domain. Each project that you worked on or each initiative will not have to cover all of the domains, but you need to have some experience across the domains total for your experience in total. But for example, collaborate in the development of project goals and objectives by providing clarification of business needs and solution scope in order to align the product or what you're building on the project with the organization's goals and objectives. So think about the kinds of things that you did that, that were aligned with or that were really along the lines of doing that work, and try to describe the work that you did on your projects with these kinds of tasks in mind. Don't copy them verbatim. And I'm certainly not suggesting that you make up experience. You need to be truthful. But when you look at these things, that might not have been how you were thinking about what you were doing, but you can recognize that, yeah, I was doing that. I was working with stakeholders to figure out how does this project align with the organization's objectives, right? So use that ECO to help you come up with verbiage around your experience. Bear in mind also, you have very little space. You have 550 characters total, including spaces, to describe your experience. So it's not a lot of space. So don't hesitate to use, you don't have to use full sentences. You can abbreviate. Really be economical about how you're describing your experience by, one, focusing on using this ECO as a guide, and two, don't worry about having to use full sentences and full, real elaborate verbiage. You just don't have space. Now, in terms of the comment about not using 80% of your time to be allocated to a project, for example, what we're talking about there, and let me see if I can go back to this. So if you look at our information on classes and our certification resources, let me just take a look here at the Watermark website, and I don't know for sure if I'll be able to pull up, hang on just a moment, application worksheet. There's a link there to the content outline as well. But the application worksheet is, let me just see here, sorry. Because since you've asked, I wanted to call it up if I could. I can't find it. Oh, I have to log in or register, so I'm not going to be able to do that right now. But so it says that you're going to put in your experience, the name of your project, the months that you worked on it, and then it will come up with some a number of hours that equates to. But it's suggesting what, and then it asks, what percentage of your time did you spend on that particular project? The reason we say 80% is because if you can't, to say 100% of your time is spent on a project is really not realistic. You cannot have 100% of your time. For example, 2,080 hours. You can't claim that 2,080 hours, if you're working full-time at, at a job, that was really spent doing those things. We have other things that take our time. It's, going down the hall, talking to folks about things, getting a cup of coffee, all that kind of stuff. In fact, in a lot of our classes, we talk about the proverbial, they say, how much, what are the proverbial, they say, in an 8-hour day, how much of your time is actually spent doing productive work? And it's something like 5.5% or something. So there's sort of that bucket of administrivia stuff that people often use to make sure that you're not being unrealistic about how much time you're spending doing something. So for example, in an organization, they have maybe a tool where you allocate resources and you say, okay, how many hours a day are these people available? Usually they won't put 8 hours, right? Nobody's available 8 hours. You've got you've got things to do that aren't going to be productive time. So that's what we're getting at there. And the reason we do that is because when you go onto the PMI website and fill out the application, it's going to do that for you. I don't know exactly what the number is that they use, but if you put, I worked, 12 months, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week on this project, they're not going to count all of that. They're going to, because you're just not available. So that's what we're getting at there. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. Um, so, and then another question about what kind of questions that you can expect on the PBA exam. So let me go back here and see what else I've got for you. So just real quickly, some of the resources, oops, I didn't want to do that. Some of the resources that you can expect on the that you want to use. So there's the handbook and the ECO, and then the other key resources, and I'll come back to was it similar to the PMP. Other key resources: the Guide to Business Analysis, the PMI Guide to Business Analysis, the Practitioner's Guide. These are the main resources. So don't worry so much about the PMBOK anymore. And this was the main change that they just made in June of this year. So really focus on that Guide to Business Analysis and the Practice Guide. And then the Requirements Management of Practice Guide. I think this is a good document. It's a little shorter. You don't need to spend as much time, but I think it's good to take a look at it. And then our Watermark resources, we've got a boot camp that gives you all 35 contact hours. It incorporates the new standard, the Guide to Business Analysis. We've got that coming up here. Here's our new certification study guide. It's a really great resource. It includes incorporation again of what you need to know for the from the Guide to Business Analysis. It's also got a really nice handout that shows how the tasks from the ECO map to the processes in the Guide to Business Analysis. And so not that you need to memorize the inputs, tools, and outputs or processes from the Guide to BA, but it's helpful just to kind of get your head around, all right, this new Guide to BA, how does that map to what we need to know for the exam and the exam content outline, because there's a little bit of a disconnect there. So it helps kind of connect the dots. And then our online study exam, we've gotten really good feedback on this as well, over 800 questions that really help prepare you. People have found this to be really, really very helpful. So the kinds of questions, if you have a PMP, you will find the PBA exam to be easier. Now, everybody brings their own style and personality to certification exams. I'm kind of an intense exam taker. I'm a good exam taker, but I'm an intense exam taker. So I would never say that a test was easy, but it's definitely easier than the PMP. You still need to be prepared. There are not a lot of calculations at all. There are, some scenario questions for sure, but they're not real dense. So it's similar to the PMP in that it is in length. It's 2 hours, or I'm sorry, 4 hours, 200 questions, a lot of scenario questions. But if you've already been through the PMP, you will find the PBA to be an easier exam. Not easy, easier. So I do want to qualify that. So then here, just in terms of, I think it's always interesting. I love tracking certification numbers just to see what's going on out there in the world of certification. This is the fastest growing certification that PMI has by quite a long shot. So you can see that it's been around since 2014. Year-over-year growth from last year was nearly 80%. This year, we're still at 42% for the PBA, followed by the ACP, but it's still the fastest growing certification, which totally makes sense given what's going on out there, right? So, just a quick thought about, let's see here. I wanted to just capture, hang on. Oh, I hid that slide, sorry. So some thoughts as to why, I think this is, to me, every PMP, if you have a PMP, you should be seriously thinking about pursuing the PBA for a variety of reasons. For one thing, BA skills are hot, 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 hot. Organizations, we are just seeing tons of focus on organizations pursuing BAs, looking for BAs, people developing BA skills, organizations sending their people to classes to get BA skills. This is really kind of where it's at right now, is this whole thing with, business analysis and making sure that we're getting value out of what we're delivering. Part of that, it goes very closely hand in hand with the fact that BA skills, and I have to be careful about how I say this because PM skills are also needed in agile environments, but BA skills translate more seamlessly into an agile environment. People are pretty, transparent about the idea that, hey, we need BA skills on this team. We need BA skills to be working with our product owners or whatever. So it really kind of works closely with that, because Agile, of course, is also very hot, hot, hot. So that's one of the things that people are looking for, are these BA skills to help, make sure that refining of that backlog is done well, to bring some of those skills that often a product owner or customer doesn't have, to make sure that what's being delivered is aligned with what the organization really needs and is delivering the value expected. The other thing is that for people who come from a PM background, and I am totally, I am PMP. I am a PM in my bones. I've got project management DNA, I think. But it was very helpful. I knew when the PBA came along, and I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, I've been doing those things. And then you really start to think about the work that you do. A lot of us wear that hybrid. We wear those dual hats, right? We have that hybrid role, project manager, business analysis. And the whole exercise of that PBA certification helped so much for me to understand, when am I doing project management and when am I doing business analysis? They're both good, they're both needed, but they're different things. And importantly, they have different objectives. They are serving stakeholders in different ways. And so it is enormously helpful to get some clear delineation between those things. Not that I can't do them both, but when I'm doing project management work, I have one set of objectives, I have one set of interests, I have different things I'm communicating. When I'm doing BA work, I've got a different set of objectives, different stakeholders I'm communicating with. And so it was super helpful to really make that clear, to kind of pull those things apart a little bit. And until you really force yourself to sit down and make sense of those standards and the discipline itself, you really, it's a little murky and it can be kind of frustrating. So, and then to the extent that you've got those people filling those, other people filling those roles, you know exactly what to expect from them, right? It just makes you a lot better partner when you're not the one doing those, because you understand what it is that they're doing. So there's enormous value there as well, in terms of being part of a team, or being part of the group or the team that is working to meet the organization's needs. So those are, a few of what I see as really the top reasons. Boy, if you have a PMP, you can almost be sure that you've been doing BA work. Take a look. You will just, I mean, it's just like lights on. It just really, really is super, super helpful. And I think has made me more valuable as a project manager / BA, whatever role it is that I'm filling. So, oops, sorry here. All right, so here was our certification again, our numbers there. And then my PMI certification pop quiz. What is more fun than studying for a PMI exam? Even though I get very excited about certification, I'd suggest everything is more fun than studying for a PMI exam. It's just, it's a lot of work. So you have to be very intentional. Think about it, make a decision, and then you've got to just commit to doing a little something every day to stay on top of it. Every single day, even if it's just 5 minutes with flashcards. Don't let one day goes by, otherwise it'll slip away from you. 7 days a week, every 24-hour period, you got to do at least one little thing for each little box on the calendar. So that's my number one certification tip is to just, once you make that commitment, get that thing scheduled as soon as you can. If you need the contact hours from a class, that's fine. Get that app done, get that thing sent in as soon as you can, and then just, you gotta just stay on it every single day. So my top 10 prep tips: do something every day, in case you didn't catch that just a minute ago. Practice your brain dump. So we talked about doing a brain dump in our class. Yes, I'll be teaching the PBA class in October. And so we'll talk about brain dumps and figure out what you want to do on that, where you kind of purge some things you've committed to memory, be it equations or whatever, onto your scratch paper, and practice that, because that'll help you, first of all, make good use of your time, and it'll force you to commit those things to memory. You want to keep taking practice tests until you're scoring into the 80s. So you need to be doing really well on your practice tests before you go in to take the real thing. Use our flashcards. So we have some flashcards, but you also create your own flashcards. I'm a big advocate of that. Get little, inexpensive, just note cards, like old recipe cards. And as you're studying, just have a stack of them. I bet I had couple hundred when I studied for my PBA. And just, as you're studying, put a term on there, the definition on the other side, and you can use those, then put them in a bag and use them, take them with you when you've got a minute to sit down. I know there's people like them on their phones too, mobile apps or some of those kinds of things that you can find. But your brain does something when you write it down. And for me, I've personally found that to be very helpful. Um, Study by one domain or chapter at a time. So let's focus on needs assessment. Let's go ahead and read the needs assessment stuff in the Guide to BA and the practice guide and the Watermark study guide. Then do planning, then do analysis, and kind of do that vertical deep dive per domain. That's super helpful. And then kind of after you've done that, then do a more horizontal take, kind of read across, take one and read across the domains. And do practice questions, simulations with a mix of questions. Find a study buddy, partner with somebody, and so that you can teach them what you don't know. Find what you're most struggling with the most and volunteer to teach it to somebody. And I always recommend, if that means you got to get the dog to sit still while you talk to them, do that. The best way to learn something is to teach somebody. Read the standards. I recommend reading the standards at least once. It's a lot of reading, but, and I know people that don't read them. I'm kind of a little more cautious and methodical about how I approach things. So I recommend making it through those at least once. And then how much time? Everybody's different. It depends kind of on your style, but you're looking at least 40 hours, and that would be after a class. So it's not something you're going to do in a couple of hours. I know people will say 100 hours or something like that. There is a point of diminishing return here. You're looking to pass, right? You're going to either pass or fail. You're not going to get an A. Good news, you don't need one. So you need to study enough until you can pass. And so study until you're getting 80% on practice test questions, and that would be practice test questions that you don't exactly memorize or recognize from having seen the same question 10 times. So, but I would say at least 40 hours. So that has sort of been a 40, 50, something like that. And then know thyself, whatever works for you. So you're going to get, lots of people have lots of different advice about how to prepare, how to study. Know what works for you. And the same thing doesn't work for everybody. So, just really honor your own approach and what seems to make you feel the most confident and comfortable, and use that. And the other stuff, maybe it works for somebody else. But so that's what I've got. I think here, I think I have answered all the questions. Is there anything else that I can help anybody with? Oh, I'm so glad. I'm glad this was helpful, folks. That's good. Yeah, how many of you, are there PMPs out there? Anybody? No? Okay. Well, even if you don't have it, I mean, I think it's an awesome certification. Like I say, I think PMI's resources are excellent. There are other certifications out there and other standards, but I find their stuff to be very easy to understand. It speaks directly to, what we do. Um, I think it's good stuff. So. Good luck to you. If anybody has questions after this, don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. I'd love to help you out. I'd love to see you in class. And I think that if this is a path you're moving down, I think you're doing the right thing. You're spending your time well. So if you've got any other questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to call this good. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and have a great weekend.